I am very happy to introduce our guest speaker, Evelyn Janet Porter. Evelyn is a proud Canadian transgender female and professional engineer who has worked, lived, and/or toured Canada from coast to coast to coast, together with time spent assorted countries and continents overseas. She is a proud parent, along with her loving spouse, having 5 adult children, all intelligent, hardworking, and courageous. Evelyn has close ties with the Unitarian Church of Edmonton and has been actively engaged in the United Church of Canada at the Congregational, Presbytery, Conference, and General Council levels, representing primarily Garneau and Spirit of Hope churches. She is just completing a 2-year term as board chair at Spirit of Hope and remains on the board as the past chair while serving as co-chair of the Affirm team. Volunteerism and service remain key components within Evelyn's value system. Evelyn is now halfway through her 8th decade and getting younger every year. She tells me that she spent the first half of her life in flats and will enjoy the second half in heels. She has literally walked a mile in all of our shoes. As a member of the queer community, although Evelyn prefers gay community, she has served as a long-term president of the Gay Curling League, helping to introduce the Cross-Canada Integrated Gay Curling Association, promoted the Pride Centre in Edmonton, marched in countless pride parades, been requested and served as guest speaker at numerous churches, including several faith denominations, as well as invited to speak at a few of the faculties at the U of A. Evelyn has also made herself available, totally gratis, to sit down with members of the queer community who struggle with either their gender or sexuality or both. She would not claim to be a mentor, but has graciously served in that capacity to a lot of young people over the years. Evelyn is extremely pleased to be here today and hopes to both inform and challenge us with some ideas and insights. Please join me in welcoming Evelyn Porter.
Thank you, Louise. Is this working? Can you hear me? Okay. Well, good morning. Yeah. Good morning, Sherwood Park United. 2023, the year of intention, is set out by the United Church of Canada and Affirm United, ça fait ensemble, en français. You likely are wondering, it's having someone from pre-region, way back then. We're still walking and talking. Some of you may remember, some of you younger types, pre-region days. It seems so long ago. Kathy and I were remarking about that a little earlier. The younger sisters are a real burden sometimes. You may have heard the term, I was born this way. Gaga is always raiding my closet. She's a real nuisance. Thank you, Louise, for your kind words. A lot of times when I'm invited out, I'm usually known as, "Here comes trouble." But you can just call me Ev. I'm going to make use of my cheat sheets this morning. And I have to say thank you to Joanne, your administrative assistant and commander extraordinaire, as well as countless individuals who congregated here last night and decorated the place. Isn't the gay lifestyle something? I'll hold that thought. You might change your mind a little further on in this morning's talk. I'm going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to hear about some math, some science, some physics, philosophy, some humor, perhaps some grammar, a little government policy, some experience. And I'm going to touch on a lot of topics, and the underlying aspect of this is, yes, 2023, the year of intention from a United Church perspective, but I want to challenge you to think, if you will, outside the lines, somewhere I live. Okay, so my able assistant, thank you, and I have to say thank you to Andrew. We had a long chat, about 30 seconds to get things going, and I think we should be all right. So bear with us, relax, don't get too comfortable in your pew, and we'll try to take you on an interesting journey. Good. Now, my cheat sheet is only one page long, but due to constraints, dimensionally speaking, the table of contents is going to take up 4 slides. I'm not going to belabor each point. We'll get to them through this morning's chat, and so patience, and I'll be around to engage any of you if you have some tough questions later on. So we're going to rip through some terminology. Sadly, from the standpoint of available information and support mechanisms, the support mechanism side, excuse me, for, let's just say, visible minorities, has vastly improved. When I was like the little ones, there was no word. Transsexual did not exist. There were magazines sold in corners of drugstores under the guise of ownership, under lock and key. Black magazines, pornography, female impersonators, things that were evil, not to be dealt with. In any case, another form of pushing things deeper, and arguably some stuff was not good, but a lot of stuff was just not understood. And as you'll know now, and maybe come to learn more today and beyond today, terminology, knowledge is constantly in flux. I hope all of you are open to change and to knowledge and to new experiences. Life is just like that. And certainly the rainbow family, the gay community, are learning as well. And that's not a bad thing. The environment now is certainly much better. Up until 1970, it was criminal to be gay, sadly. And I won't belabor that whole journey. That's another topic for another day. Andrew, no sleeping on the dials. So we'll I'll just keep talking, let him catch up. Kids today. Jeez. Why don't we just do without the... it's only a distraction. So anyway, we're going to go on, and certainly we're going to talk about pie. Well, that's a nice picture. Have you been to this place? We're going to talk about closeted realities. We're going to talk about different concepts. Certainly, you're going to hear chapter and verse from the concept or the book of Evelyn, and I was once challenged by when this was newer being out, if you will. You should write a book. As you'll see later, I'm a much better artist, but I do enjoy writing. In any case, we'll talk a little bit about the blurring of sex and gender. For those of you who may not have considered that, sex and gender are not the same. You can be female or male or somewhere along the rainbow and be attracted to like gender or not, and that's okay. If you're attracted, that aspect is a sexual attraction, but gender is something you personally identify with. That's your experience, and you can share that or whatever, that's up to you. But the two, same-sex marriage, that's what it's referred to as, but correctly speaking, it should be same-gender marriage. So, just something to think about. Again, I don't want to lecture you. I want to, hopefully this will be an informal exchange. And then we'll move on. Oh, wow. Well done. Moving right along, and we'll wind up having a little bit more fun, but I'll be down here on the floor talking a little bit more about some of the other side of the gay experience, if you will. But the object for you folks as an affirming congregation is to embrace intentionality, embrace this year of intention, and to help me along in that journey, I've asked the choir to reinforce that statement once again. And, thank you, you'll hear more of that. Throughout my talk, you're allowed to join the choir. So when you see me giving them the hand, the right hand, the finger is attached to Andrew, but the hand is for the choir and you folks. So you're in the right part of the game. Okay. Hey, good. So we have this thing, not every language does, but in English, called homonym. So today, we're going to talk about pie. That'll be an underlining thing. And to make it simple, we're going to have pie for breakfast, pie for lunch, and pie for supper. This will be the full meal deal. Now, to dispense with some aspects of pie, you mathematicians, geodesists, surveyors, and other number crunchers, we will dispense with, let's see, the first pie. Some people just survive on numbers. So, and this will be the short part of this. Okay, pi, P-I, is the 16th letter in the Greek alphabet. It's basically a two-legged mushroom. And it's equal to 3.14159 blah, 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 blah. Just like some guest speakers. It just goes on and on. The big thing about pi is it's equal to the circumference of a circle divided by the diameter. So if you wanted to walk from here to China through the middle of the earth, that's a shorter journey than going around the outside. Few bumps along the way. But anyway, so that's interesting from that standpoint. Pi Day was started in about 1988 by a chap by the name of Larry Shaw down in San Francisco. And down there, you know, that's close to Silicon Valley. And all they have to do all day long is think about numbers and so on and so forth. And that's about the amount of time we'll spend on pi today. Up and down. I've had some practice falling too. It's hard to get good help. Okay, so an affirming talk, 2023. The question, as a registered affirming church within the United Church of Canada, what should our path be forward from an intentional perspective? They're a little slow, but we'll get there. Intentionality is being deliberate. It's to represent or stand for certain things, some of which we'll talk about today. It's basically about being deliberate, being clear, being purposeful, being mindful, being focused and goal-oriented. Sounds like running a business, doesn't it? For we as individuals, being intentional can help us maintain a positive mindset, maybe a broader mindset, reach goals, experience more clarity, and be more in the moment. In other words, accept things as you see them. Go beyond as you see them. More about that later. Thank you. He's getting there. So what does God have to say about intentionality? Biblical intentionality involves making a daily choice to glorify God through our lives, all through our lives. God's version on intentionality gives us purpose and direction. If you will, vision and mission. What does the Bible say about living with intention? Make wise plans to live intentionally, but make them with God. This comes out of a few chapters in Proverbs. In this recent issue, you may be familiar with the Broadview magazine. Our moderator, under the guise of Easter calls us to change the world. She has three key aspects in her message: deep spirituality, bold discipleship, and daring justice. Strong words with you can join them, it's all right. No extra charge. Thank you. Heather's very patient, and I have to say, I agree with Marlene. Band of angels. So, excellent. We'll get there. You're reading my mind. So welcoming versus affirming. And just an aside, we'll come more to it in a bit, understand that tolerance is not acceptance. When you're on the receiving end, you understand that very, very well. Just think about it. Most congregations do their best to be welcoming, but being affirming goes deeper and is public, intentional, and explicit. In the commitment to diversity and inclusion, we are not all the same, but we are all the same. Think PI, public, intentional, and explicit. These are the standards that we hold ourselves to when we seek to be affirming, diverse, and inclusive. So let's talk about the pie crust. You saw both ends. We have the public, and we have the explicit, and we have the meaty juice in the middle, if you will, the substance in the middle, the intention. So, first being a public. An affirming ministry uses symbols and signs, signage, billboards, flags, pride, etc., which are echoed outside and inside your church buildings, in worship, and in all facets of your church life. Back. This is what we call team. The second is being explicit. So that's one crust. We'll call public the surface of the pie. So now we're on the bottom of the pie. Affirming, second being explicit. Affirming ministry should be explicitly indicative, if you will, in their mission and vision statements and everywhere else that the LGBTQ2SAI plus community is part of and embraced in all aspects of church life. And as part of that affirming process, the faith community should explore and explain through continuous improvement how to live out that commitment. Just keep trying. Now, for the essence, the filler, the stuff between the crusts, intentional. An affirming ministry is deliberate in the process of their study, education, and dialogue with members of within the faith community, without, during the affirming process, and ongoing beyond. This all helps to demonstrate intentionality. Okay. So, let's focus on this intentional piece of the pie. Some questions for you, all of you. Do you continue to have events and initiatives that keep the affirming ministry active? Workshops, film nights, studies, partnerships with other organizations, not necessarily church organizations, or they can be. Do you incorporate the affirming messages into your church services and other regular events within the ministry, without? These are all important. Have you visited your action plan? I'm going to get a kink in my neck. What areas do you need to grow in? Have you asked the questions? Have you looked at your policies to make sure they're updated and include new areas of education? For example, in trans-inclusive washrooms, safe space guidelines for renters. The United Church and Affirm United have a ton of ideas and suggestions, and I certainly encourage you to look on their websites I've given a packet of sampling of stuff to Louise, who I understand you're a firm lead. So there's, like I said earlier, the knowledge base out there, the support mechanisms are vast now compared to, and you say, the journey, I mean, that's only 1955, 1960, what's that, 60 years ago? There was like this much information. It was hush-hush, criminal, etc., etc. And now, the world has changed. I'm going to move on and talk about, and yeah, not yet, just maybe go dead for a second, Andrew, and then we'll bring it up. So we'll talk about some statistical facts, and statistics is the one subject that throughout my whole education that I hated. You know, Chebyshev principles and the Gaussian curve. It's just like, oh my God, terrible stuff. But necessary evil, and we, you know, what the heck, I might as well share it with you today. You can feel the pain too. Gender identity and sexual orientation are used to justify human rights violations around the world. Same-sex, same gender, sexual activity is a crime in 71 countries. I'm sure it's likely higher. In 11 of these, the death penalty can be imposed. We'll have another look, and I'll try to stay on my feet this time. The way things were going with the overheads there, I was thinking it was a good thing we had the flip charts. Dig, dig. Andrew and I are just like this. Well, maybe not after today. Okay. And I apologize for the lack of clarity for those of you in the back row, but bear with us. So, used to be LGBT. That was yesterday. Things have grown somewhat. For those of you who are not up on things, L is, just a moment. See what you're missing? I know, who invited them, eh? There we go. So L, lesbian, female, attracted to female, gay, male, attracted to male, bisexual, more open, transgender. The T is quite broad in respect. That whole realm has gotten more complex over the short period. We'll just leave it at transgender for now. Q is for queer or questioning. 2S, it takes in the two-spirited aspect, if you will, from our indigenous brothers and sisters. A is asexual. People who are not inclined to anyone. That's where the hermits live. I, intersexual. You may be more familiar or grew up with hermaphrodite. This is being born with genitalia from both genders. And plus is the gender expansive or more fluid expression. So that's a little word on terminology. We'll see a little bit more about that as we come. But what does that have to do with me? Well, this could be your sons, your daughters, your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, your friends, people you don't know. This is letters on a page. Just like we saw with pi. But these are people. Please never forget that. You don't want to be called number 2754. That's not all of you. It's not even any of you. But we are all designated by terms, numbers, letters. Fun, eh? So, here in Canada, we have more than 1 million people who identify under one of those particular terms. Case in point, in 2019, police reported 265 hate crimes targeting people under some form of sexual orientation. That was a 41% increase over the previous year, and the highest since 2009. So, that statistic comes from stuff from a few years ago. I've updated it a little bit. And isn't it grand how much more knowledge and acceptance has moved along since 2019? I wonder what the number is in 22. I wonder what the number is so far in 23. We have government policy protecting us. We have rights. We all have rights. So, what's wrong? Good question. I'm going to show you something else to think about. I'll show you too. Sometimes you need 6 hands. For the benefit of the choir. What the heck does that mean? So hang in there. So, again, this comes under the guise of the School of Evelyn, if you will. The sad reality, which may explain some of this, is under demeaning, degrading, degeneration, if you will. And which is sad, because I understand that in Alberta, we have, if not one of, the highest concentration of degreed, educated, intelligent human beings anywhere in North America. Maybe not Silicon Valley. But the trouble is, that only attaches to some aspect of us. It doesn't explain opinion or prejudice and so forth. These human emotions. Intelligence and education is great, but it has to come with some feeling, some heart. We are human creatures first. We're not simply brains. That may even be an oxymoron, I don't know. So sadly, what leads to this kind of thing? Ignorance. We can address ignorance. We have schools. We have support groups. But the trouble is, ignorance feeds into fear. And fear is, we shelter ourselves from fear. That's a defensive thing we need to protect ourselves from. And then why do we have fear? We have to blame somebody. So this thing called hate starts to materialize. And it has to be directed. We just can't have hate. We have to hate something. We have to hate somebody. Why not, eh? And sadly, we have other people who are like us. Well, let's direct that hate in the form of violence. And we don't want to use violence on ourselves. We want to cause injury. So, on that group that we just looked at a moment ago. And sadly, and especially true in the trans community, too often with death, ending in death. And these numbers, they're just numbers, but do you think here in Edmonton, I'll include the greater Edmonton area, it may have migrated upwards. The hate crime unit consisted of 4 people, 2 male, 2 female, and they patrolled mostly in shifts, so that means 2 people on at a time, along White Avenue. That was the problem. That's where all the gay people hung out. That was our issue. So that's, when it comes to representation and protection and all the rest of it for visible minorities, you work it out. Compared to, let's move to the sun. From an uplifting standpoint, education. Let's turn this around. Migrating up through recognition. What are my limitations? What don't I know? Etc. And hopefully get to a place of acceptance. It's not all about me. We're the same, but we're different. And I'm not better. You're not lesser. We're okay. And we move into something called affirmation. Ooh, we're getting somewhere. And from our standpoint in the church, that should, I hope, stand for community, love, safety. Again, from the perspective of one on the receiving end. You might construe that as home. Here at Sherwood Park, you might construe it as we're getting there. It's not a hard journey, but you got to work at it, and it requires intention. You have to want to. Now let's leave that up. Now, and this is good, Andrew. It's okay. So, well, you people have had a good shot. It's time for the choir to get a little bit too. So, some of you may know this term, some may not. The closet. The closet. Otherwise known as the personal prison. Security so profound, it cripples people, diminishes them. What's inside this closet? Fear, guilt, blame, unworthiness, self-loathing, repression, depression, totally alone. And believe me, lots and lots of tears. So let's open the closet. The hinges are a little squeaky. Well, we're trying. Yeah. Kind of, sort of. This was generated by one of the big 3. Picasso, Salvador Dali, and Evelyn Porter. This is an original. So, the common link in the LGBTQ2SAI plus community is this thing called the closet. How's the gay lifestyle sounding now? That's their reality. Back to the facts. That's their reality. This reality is a reality for essentially anyone who may come under the guise of visible minority. In some ways, you would be better, we would all be better being blind. They may be deaf. This world might be a better place. All these people, your sons, your daughters, your brothers, your sisters, your fathers, your mothers, people you don't know, your friends, who fall into this community, this rainbow family, know that reality. They live with it. Sorry. Every day. I know too many people, sorry. I'm going to quote here a bit, try to. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff will comfort me. People in this family know what pray means. Some of you might understand what pray means. It's a jungle out there. You can be the rod and the staff intentionally. Okay. Okay. Don't want to beat you up too badly here. So just imagine if this was you, finding an affirming congregation, the tremendous relief, the refuge, the connection, experiencing wholeness and acceptance of oneself. These people do not love themselves. And any of you who know, you may have heard of Winston Churchill. He had the gift of the gab, so to speak. He understood language. This, above all else, to thine own self be true. When you're prey, when you hate yourself, when you have no substance, no reality except a life in the closet, that's effectively death. So finding an intentional, affirming congregation is life. It's a resurrection. It's being saved. As we've heard from the scriptures, we are all God's creatures. We are all children of God. We are all made in the image of God. So along with our diversity, being together and inclusively. This is pretty simple, eh? And the choir has a few empty spots. So at Sherwood Park United Church, the following could be your mantra. You are, or could be, a place not of conformity, but of challenging norms. This could be not just a destination, but a journey. Not just about surviving, but being adventurous. Not just happy, but joyous. Not just surprising, but astounding. Not just about having fun, but being uproarious. Not just different, but unpredictable. Not just about discussion, but inspiration. Not just words, but action. Let me come back for a moment. So I'm going to ask you now to close your eyes, just get into yourself, bow your head if you like. And I'm just going to go through a few lines. And so this is some alone time by yourself. What if this was me? Just imagine being different. Imagine keeping a dark secret out of fear. Imagine being completely vulnerable. Imagine being all alone. Imagine being constantly repressed and in deep depression. Imagine knowing rejection without limitation. Imagine suffering both institutional and everyday in-your-face isolation and harassment. Imagine never knowing or having a safe place. Imagine living perpetually in a closet. Thank you. Just some thoughts. Just some thoughts. But Affirm is about loving and caring. After all, Affirm is formally part of your collective identity. And what do we do to demonstrate that? Last one coming up. Now, as Marlene mentioned earlier, this is a biblical reference from the Message version of the Bible. As you walk the road with me, you're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept, nor are you. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket. I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there, on this hilltop, on this light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God. This generous Lord in heaven. And again, this is really all about intentionality. Last but not least, hey, we're getting there. We're coming up to that final pie. So, what do you see in this picture? You see hairstyle? You see skin color? You see clothes? You see the fixtures? The setting? I'll bet some of you see the food. You know what I see? I see joy. I see passion. I see love. I see family. I see home. I see intentionality. So I've been directing my efforts today toward your hearts and your minds. However, in a moment of weakness, I believe that I must now surrender to satisfying the needs of your stomachs. When it comes to pie, there is something special about what comes out of the kitchen. God bless you all. Thank you very, very much.